Good morning, you're watching Addis News Hour. I'm Zwart Desaling. Thank you for joining us and do stay tuned. Ethiopia announced that it has managed to secure the peaceful release of 6 Djiboutian army members who were held hostage by Frood militants. In a press statement delivered on Wednesday, December 21st by Faisal Shal, Director General of African Affairs with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ethiopian government said it secured the release through careful intelligence and police operations in tandem with traditional support mechanisms from the Afar Regional Administration and local elders. The ambassador said that the army members were handed over to the government of Djibouti, pointing out that Ethiopia and Djibouti are working together to enhance cooperation in peace and security. It is to be recalled that 6 Djiboutian army members went missing after the armed Frood attacked an army post in an area called Garabitsan in the Tajura region on October 6, 2022. Tigrayan scholars and youths have expressed readiness to discharge their responsibilities to maintain the fruits of the Pretoria Agreement that marks the end of hostilities between Addis Ababa and the TPLF. Scholars and youths drawn from the northernmost and war-torn state of Tigray discussed the process of national reform, the implementation of the peace agreement, the reconstruction efforts in the state, and their role in ensuring the country's development endeavors. Kasan Chani has the details from the Ethiopian News Agency.
Briefing scholars and Tigray elites, Chief Government Whip at the Parliament Tesfaye Beligye and Coordinator for Democracy System Building Center, with the rank of the Minister, Zadig Abraham noted the government is working tirelessly to maintain the fruits of a peace agreement. According to the officials, the government is carrying out reform initiatives meant to address Ethiopia's political, economic and social problems from their roots. The third internal and external problems were encountered in a course of reform activities, citing the war in northern Ethiopia as one such incident. The participants for their part appreciated the government's endeavor to ensure peace and development in the country. Activities meant to ensure lasting peace in Tigray, spearheaded by the federal government, must be pressed ahead. The third.
In the event, we have discussed the value of working together. We have shown commitment to the implementation of the peace deal by standing in unison. In particular, we should back efforts directed at rebuilding the demolished infrastructure in the state using our knowledge, capacity, and so on. I can assure you that we remain stalwart for the realization of this worldwide objective.
They further underscored that the peace agreement has come as a glimmer of hope to the people of Tigray for being part of a nationwide reform and rebuilding Tigray after 2 years of bloody war.
This peace deal has hugely impacted the body politic of Tigray. In this, it has snapped the people of Tigray out of the abyss. Together, we will roll up our sleeves for the implementation of this historic deal and rebuild Tigray.
Ethiopia's federal government and leaders in the war-torn Tigray region signed a peace accord on 2 November, followed by an implementation deal 10 days later.
With this peace deal, I believe the people of Tigray will be blessed with scores of advantages, for instance, rethinking our relationship with our Ethiopians and the value of working together within a democratic federal government. That, I believe, is a home-take assignment for us in the post-war Tigray.
Participants called upon all parties to act responsibly to build a solid foundation for peace.
The National Disaster Risk Management Commission stated that more than 8.3 million people have received first-round humanitarian assistance since the Pretoria Peace Agreement was signed. The National Disaster Risk Management Commission Commissioner, Ambassador Shfarot Klamariam, discussed with representatives of international partners and donors on areas of priority in the relief operation process. It is stated on the occasion that humanitarian assistance is being delivered steadfastly to people affected by the conflict in Amhara, Tigray, and Afar regions. The Commissioner elaborated that 8,358,196 people have received first-round humanitarian assistance since the Pretoria Peace Agreement was signed between the federal government and the TPLF. Currently, 29 international relief organizations are involving in relief operation in Tigray region, according to the Commissioner, who expressed gratitude to aid agencies and donors for the unfettered humanitarian support. Ethiopia, home to 120 million people, is one of the world's most drought-prone countries. But to reduce vulnerability to hydrometeorological hazards and natural disasters, it has embarked upon the Green Legacy Initiative. This is a policy by far most consequential and expected to yield a resilient economy. The initiative has gripped the globe by surprise for its astounding success, so much so that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was awarded the Outstanding African Leadership Award in recognition of the Green Legacy Initiative in mid-December. In the following piece, our staff reporter Tigisar Nisa walks us through the initiative.
Our current world is gravely affected by the consequences of climate change. And Ethiopia's immediate and practical approach to addressing the pressing climate change issues was the Green Legacy Initiative. The Green Legacy Initiative, launched in June of 2019, is rooted in a vision of building a green and climate-resilient Ethiopia, spearheaded by His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed. The target was set of planting 20 billion seedlings within a period of 4 years, and exceeding the original plan, it was able to plant 25 billion seedlings, mobilizing 25 million Ethiopians across the nation.
For Ethiopia, climate change mitigation and adaptation over the past 4 years have been anchored in concrete action, exchanging mere talk for actionable walk. A nation has stood firm and chosen to act rather than react.
Ethiopia as a nation has gained remarkable achievements due to this Green Legacy Initiative. By 2022, the Green Legacy Initiative has fostered a flourishing national green culture, tripling the number of seedlings nurseries to more than 121,000, creating over 750,000 jobs, mostly for women and youth, and generating 1.3 billion Ethiopian birr in income.
As a direct outcome of the Green Legacy Initiative, 1.3 billion in ETB income was created, mostly for youth and women, where a significant amount started their own businesses.
There is no doubt that to literally sowing seeds today will bear fruit across generations to come, reducing carbon emissions, environmental degradations, and to be able to have increased rain in dry areas. It is to be recalled that on the 13th of December, Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed was awarded the Outstanding African Leadership Award on an event held in the sidelines of US Africa Summit in the United States, recognizing Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative as an African success story.
In an effort to strengthen regional cooperation for climate resilience, Ethiopia has expanded its Green Legacy Initiative to neighboring countries by sharing its seedlings. Life, after all, begins as a seed. This is Ethiopia's green legacy. Our legacy. Your legacy.
Reporting to you, Tegis Sarnisa.
Countries around the world use opportunities in various forms of platform.
It is high time for Africa to become a domestic tourism market.
This is the time for us to produce what we consume.
How would that platform would impact the entire Africa?
The unity of Africa is here. It resides here in Addis Ababa.
Exactly opposite what the media is trying to portray to those who are outside Ethiopia.
What has really motivates you to work on tourism?
Africa Union kindly help African countries to open the sky of Africa.
Thank God we have a country like Ethiopia.
The entire African continent is an import-driven economy.
We should go back to that, Ubuntu. Everybody owns everything. Nobody owns anything.
The need for a fair and equitable representation of Africa at the UN Security Council has resurfaced of late. Echoing this need at the World Security Powerhouse was India's foreign minister, who called on African nations to vigorously and aggressively work for this to happen. The historical injustice which nurtured Africa's isolation must come to a screeching halt, as it was pointed out. Gosha Meliso takes it from here. Take a look.
The UN Security Council has 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. Now less than 70 to 75 of all these issues discussed in the governmental body revolve around Africa. But it remains lamentable that no African country is represented in the UN Security Council. That is historical injustice, according to India's foreign minister, who stressed and added that reforming the UN Security Council is a clarion call of the time.
We have convened here today for an honest conversation about the effectiveness of multilateral institutions created more than 75 years ago. That the question of equitable representation on and increase in the membership of the Security Council has been on the UNGA agenda for well over 3 decades. Member states from Latin America, Africa, Asia, and small island developing states should have credible and continuing representation in the Security Council. Decisions about the future can no longer be taken without their participation. Equally important is to make working methods and processes of the global institutions, including this Council, more accountable, objective, and transparent.
The historical injustice to the 54 member states of Africa, with a population of more than 1.3 billion and a combined economy in excess of $3.5 trillion must be prioritized.
While the quest for a permanent representation of Africa at the Council is taking shape, the proposed amount of seats has exceeded 4. The stakes say if and when this is realized, there is need to make sure that the seats goes to influential states in the continent known for being the beacons of Pan-Africanism. As it now stands, the continent doesn't even have a single voice amongst the permanent membership to defend its own interests. African states comprise nearly 28% of the UN's overall membership. Despite much time having been spent on African issues, many UN Security Council members have treated them as marginal or less strategic compared to Syria, North Korea, or the Middle East peace process. Russia has also joined the bandwagon of criticism at the UN Security Council. The denial of permanent seats for Africa in the United Nations Security Council is unacceptable by any standard, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in early October this year. Denying Africa, which is home to many people with rich natural resources, a permanent seat in the Security Council shows that there is still colonial feeling, the ministry noted. Other African leaders have time and again hammered at the issue.
It is the right time to reform and revitalize the United Nations system to reflect current global realities and ensure that it is a more representative and equitable body. Only fair representation and transparency in those institutions can usher in a just era in multilateralism.
We want fairness, we want Africa to be well represented and to be heard, because it cannot be fair that 1.3 billion people's views and thoughts cannot be heard at that high level in the same way that the views of the countries which have a veto right are heard.
Africans are making it loud and clear that the root cause of most of the conflicts in Africa are the disputes and conflicts left behind by colonial rulers. Therefore, the freedom of Africans should be respected as they have the ability to solve problems in Africa by themselves, they underlined.
The United Nations World Tourism Organization has recognized the Chokwe Mountains as a Best Tourism Village of 2022. The Chokwe Mountainous Village is situated some 300 kilometers from Addis Ababa in the northwest in Daga Damot district of West Gojam Zone, state of Amhara. Chokwe Village is a community-based environmental protection ecosystem, including amazing waterfalls, forests and wildlife, and Blue Nile watersheds with unique flora and fauna. The United Nations World Tourism Organization gave the recognition to Chokwe Mountain cognizant of the activities underway in the village to preserve and promote natural and cultural heritages and community values.
The 70th Global
It's expected that Ethiopia is where Ethiopians
Our news is always aired on Monday to Friday on 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. and also on Saturday and Sunday on 9 p.m. Make sure to follow us.
You're watching Addis News Hour, and we have arrived to the segment of what's been trending so far. And I'm joined by our staff member, Daniel Kasaun. Good morning.
Good morning to you all.
So, as we have to cut to the chase of what's been trending over the past 24 hours, let's talk about the expansion of the Ethiopian Airlines and, of course, the United States Africa Summit. I think there's a lot that has actually been addressed over here with regards to these 2 points.
All right, we talk about 2 issues about the expansion of Ethiopian Airlines. It's going to build a new airlines around Bishoftu, which is located some 30 to 40 kilometers away from the capital Addis Ababa toward the southeast. And CEO of the Ethiopian Airlines, Masfin Asau, has already announced that his organization is going to build the new state-of-the-art airlines, or maybe the best airlines of the continent, with an outlay of $5 billion. And this is expected to be completed in a few years. The Ethiopian Airlines has lots of achievements. It had a plan for 2025, and before the world race, the year 2025, its plans for 2025 has already been achieved. Imagine how perfect or how reliable is this airline in pursuing its plans and in doing business domestically in the continent and around the world. And it has achieved all its plans, which have been set for the year 2025. And this is very extraordinary. And the awards it has got in the past, year after year, is named the best airlines of the continent, year after year. This airline was established when most of countries of the continent were in colonial times, in the heavy hands of colonialism. And the establishment of Ethiopian Airlines should not be taken for granted. It has inspired lots of nations of the continent to be hopeful for having this airline was used by lots of leaders or activists or freedom fighters in the past to get out of the hands of the heavy hands of colonialism. We can mention some leaders who used this airline to travel in the continent in their fight against colonialism, and the establishment of these airlines and the establishment of the new airlines, it cannot be seen as a minor thing. When you look around Ethiopia, do you have any airlines which you can rely on? Do Africans have any airlines which they can rely on? No, they don't have. It is the Ethiopian Airlines which carries Africans from here to the African capital, Addis Ababa, to destinations across the world. So it's not about making profits, or it's not only about doing business. It's also about taking responsibilities. As a seat of the continental organizations, Addis Ababa takes many responsibilities in leading the African continent to the right direction for their aspired prosperity. So the responsibility is huge. Take Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous nation of the continent, but the Nigerian airline, it doesn't go out of the continent. They depend on Ethiopian Airlines. So the responsibility Ethiopian Airlines is shouldering is huge and immense, and is maintaining its track record for long. So this is a great thing for Ethiopia. Ethiopians need to celebrate this, because year after year it is winning victories for this nation, winning victories for the continent.
And whilst these amazing achievements of the Ethiopian Airlines, let's also pass on to the next agenda that we have to also talk about with regards to what's been trending so far over the past 24 hours. Also, there are other points that have been raised with regards to the U.S.-Africa summit that actually just happened a few days ago, perhaps
last week.
Yeah,
we can say.
Yeah,
yeah, right. This U.S.-Africa relationship is not seen as a real relationship. It's a relationship between the advanced nation and most of the poorest nation of the continent. Imagine how the two can sit together and can do business and can trade each other. So many of experts are saying this in suspicion, because the interest of the United States is said to get the minerals, the raw materials from Africa to America. One of the interests of the United States is being said that the United States wants to have trade between Africa and the United States, but that cannot be achieved. What do we have? What do Africans have to sell for the United States? Do they have advanced technologies or smart products to win the interest of the Americans? I don't think so. The only thing that Africans have is their minerals, which the other side of the world may not have. So they have this interest. Africa has untapped potential, so they want to exploit it. But if Africans can wake up and work seriously, they have the resources to prosper. But Africans have lots of problems: maladministration, corruption, coup d'etats. Lots of adversaries are happening in this continent. Africans are not administering their people and their resources very well. They have to be serious in managing their resources and leading their people to the right direction. Otherwise, Africa's prosperity will not be achieved, and the trade they want to have with the advanced nations may not be profitable for Africans. It may help others, but it may not be profitable for them. One thing the Americans also want to have in the African continent is they want their democracy to be implemented in the African continent. One reason they mentioned why not many African businessmen are not found in the African continent. They say the American investors are not interested to come to Africa and invest because Africans have not democratized as they want to. But democratization depends on its own context, I say. The democracy they have, take the gun violence in the United States. Is that democracy? Same-sex marriage, they want to apply in the African continent. Is that democracy? It is suicidal democracy. So the democracy they want to apply here in the African continent may not be acceptable by the majority of Africans, and still they need to deal on various issues in order to trade among themselves.
Thank you very much, Daniel Kassan, for sharing us with these brief trending stories.
Thank you.